I felt my Ninja Sith deserved its own specialty lightsaber, and so I have created this particular piece. This is my Ninja Sword inspired saber. Now this was actually built from the SaberForge Kickstarter parts, so all of these parts came from Kickstarter, but as per usual I've done some changes outside and in. So focusing on probably the most obvious one on the outside is this guy right here. This is the Ninja inspired handguard that I designed. This was actually 3D printed in steel, and it has some plastic bumpers on the end, mostly to save costs on the steel piece, but also to make sure that this doesn't damage another lightsaber if it's rattling around in my luggage. The other change I made is I actually moved the blade retention screw from down here, which really wasn't cutting it, and I actually moved it right up to the center. Now this knob serves two purposes, other than being the tightening post that you hold onto. This is also a ConvertTech clip. In order to use that ConvertTech port the way I wanted to, I made my own custom ConvertTech holder. This was printed in SLS nylon, and it's just screwed together with a bunch of 832 screws. Basically you have a slot in here that you can drop your ConvertTech into, but this outer circular rotates, locking everything into place. And what this allows me to do is, if this is on my belt, I can bring the sword up, slide it in, and then rotate this over. Now it's locked and hanging on my belt, but if I grab it to draw it like a sword, all I have to do is then rotate with my other hand, and boom, I can draw this like a kind of normal sword while it hangs more like a normal lightsaber. So moving on to the internals, I did a couple changes, mostly to the sound board here. First and foremost, I added a battery pull strap because it's often hard to get these batteries out. I added a second strap to help hold the battery in. The other thing I did is I modified this to use unprotected 18650s because I have like 10 of them laying around my house. Now, in order to make sure I don't over discharge a battery, I went ahead and soldered in an LED that basically turns off when this battery hits 3 volts. So that's my indicator, and that indicator is visible through this hole. When I slide this guy all the way in, you can see there's a little red light there. That's what tells me that I still have a charged battery. It also is incredibly handy because it tells me when I have a battery in, so I don't kind of forget and leave something just sitting in there overnight. The most important change I made is actually this switch right here. This actually is breaking this black line which runs to the speaker. And so simply by flicking this switch over, I can actually activate or deactivate the sounds without having to go through the actual soundboard memory. This way I don't have to reset everything and type in what I want my sensitivities. I can simply unscrew the bottom, slide it out, and just reach in here and mute the darn thing. So that was a pretty handy feature. Since it's a Ninja Sith Saber, I went ahead and went with a 12-watt red LED, and then for the blade I decided to go something special. Picked up this blade here, which actually has lightning carved all the way down to the tip. So it's a nice unstable blade to give it that kind of, evil Sith look. So down at the end, I 3D printed a piece to give it that ninja chisel tip. The last piece I made for this is a scabbard. I wanted to mount it to my costume in the stereotypical way that ninjas mount theirs, on their back. Now this is just a clear tube covered in a rather familiar piece of old rug with some 3D printed pieces glued on the ends. Now the ends are kind of special. First one here, you can see on this end piece here I have the House Slackatory logo, but this feature is removable. You simply rotate and it pops off, and I can replace it with Empire logo, with a mesh, or more importantly, this just hollow ring. This allows me to actually put sabers that are longer than this tube through it, so I can use it for other sabers. On this end, I've made this custom shaped piece which perfectly mates with the saber to give it a nice clean look when it's in the saber. The nice thing about having a clear tube wrapped in my rug is that when you turn on the blade, it gives you this nice kind of reveal-y kind of Death Star-y wall look to it, and then when you draw the saber out, you can see the red coming out with it. Now the other piece I made for this tip is so that when you put the saber away without a blade, like you kind of would be if it was a real saber, I made this piece here that actually has a piece of tube built into it, and what that allows me to do is actually slide this guy in, like so, and then simply lock this piece down, and so that way you could literally put away just the hilt and still use the back mount just the way it was intended. The other thing I can do is put these rings actually on both ends, and then this way I can actually still use this as kind of a storage or a holder for any lightsaber that has a flat end emitter and any length blade. So that's my completed ninja sword saber. Really like the SaberForge system, went together really well, a couple mods here and there. Why make one when you can make two for twice the price? So this is another samurai-inspired lightsaber. You can see it's actually made from the exact same pieces that I made my ninja sword-inspired lightsaber from. The only difference being obviously the finish. I actually sanded these guys down to give them a nice kind of matte silver finish. The other change is to the handguard. This is a very familiar handguard style, which I adapted for this particular saber. This is my samurai handguard. And then the other thing I did is I removed the black ray skin, and I actually 3D printed some pieces here and foil taped and distressed them to give it the kind of look of having a wrapped handle, but it's actually kind of metal and more Star Wars-y. But it uses the same on-off system, same soundboard. It uses a white LED, so it is the kind of counterpoint to the Sith Saber. This is the nice Jedi Samurai Saber. It's got the same exact ConvertTech kind of knob up here that's also your blade retention screw. This one uses my samurai blade, the one with the hamon line and the drop tip on it. Just slot that guy in there. Got a 12-watt white LED in there. Nice and bright. And it also works just wonderfully with my Scabbard. So this guy slides in just like the Ninja one did, and it still does the cool glow-through feature. Nice thing about having two matched sabers is of course combining them together, and so I designed and 3D printed out of very thick, very strong SLS nylon this coupler piece. And so now I can combine them together into a nice light side, dark side saber staff.